Okay, part 2. This is where things get interesting. Part of me expected complacency after we'd qualified because we've sort of achieved what we'd set out to do. But that's not what happened at all. Once we'd qualified, you always want that little bit more. So we really want to see how fast we could go, side by side with the crew. So now we had Saturday, Sunday, Monday. Now we had 4 days of training, 4 days to pick up some speed. So we'd put a little bit more pressure on ourselves by bumping the bar up a little bit higher. And I'd sort of forgotten this, but the Henley course takes quite a bit of acclimatizing. It's certainly not your typical regatta. So there are boats everywhere, like big boats. There's shit ton of wash hitting your boat and you're rocking around everywhere. So you've got all that but you want to look good. You're at the biggest regatta in the world. There's a lot of distraction. So what I had to remind myself was the first time you go down the course, in training anyway, is to really just soak it all in. Certainly don't expect too much from your first few sessions. Don't expect it to go perfectly and just get used to it. That's what we had to do anyway. And we were actually really happy with the speed at which we were moving out the blocks, and we thought we could settle quite well into a rhythm. We were starting to feel like we could do more. We could push on a little bit further, but obviously that is all dependent on the draw. Vlog.
Welcome to the draw.
Here we are, the birds.
Challenge Cup. There are 32 crews in the draw, 230.
There we go.
Rex, 243. Upper 10s. Upper 10s.
Don't know what to make of that. So we'd drawn upper 10s. We didn't know too much about them, so we sort of just forced ourselves into this frame of mind where we thought we could win, and we sort of just wanted to build our confidence up in the few days leading up to the race. Then we got to race day, and this is where it gets interesting. So the morning of, so George wakes up and he said, "Was Jack being sick all night?" And I said, I don't think so. So he sort of just shrugged it off. And on the morning, Jack, or barman, he was quite quiet. And then I heard someone being sick in the toilet. So first thought was someone's got pretty bad pre-race nerves. But we're quite a relaxed crew, so that was pretty unlikely. Then I remember what George had said about Jack in the morning, put 2 and 2 together, and I thought, we've got a problem. Jack's ill. Just to jump ahead a bit, looking back now, it's actually a real shame that we didn't get to race together. But at the time, we weren't really thinking about the what ifs. We just knew that we had this problem. We all really wanted to race, and race well, and with the best opportunity we had of winning. It was more, here's the problem. The worst case scenario is that we don't race at all. So steer as far clear away from that possibility as possible. And just get a plan into action. So, what do you do when your crew member is ill on the morning of a Henley race? That's a barman. Ask him one more time in the vlog. What are you saying on rating? First things first, go get said crew member off to the medical tent. They'll look after him or her and provide evidence that that crew member is actually ill. Next, go see the race officials, go explain the situation well and in a polite manner.
Hi, someone in our
our crew's like really ill. Rex Boat Club on at 11:15. Thanks.
Right, tell me, where are you? Where are the crew at the moment?
We're all in the changing room. The ill person's just at the medical centre at the moment.
I think the medical team has to take a view on them. I'm assuming this is ill, can't race. Or is this ill, we want to put a sub in?
I'm not too sure on how like subs work.
What is it? Rex Boat?
Yeah, Rex Boat Club.
So if he needs to be subbed, he needs a doctor's note, which obviously one of our doctors can provide him with.
Okay.
And then it's got to be authorised by the chairman. If you guys could find out what's going on with your colleague and let Bruce know, and then we can...
Great. Alright, thanks guys, thanks for your help.
Cheers, thank you.
The race officials were actually a great help. Once they got word from the medical tent about Jack's condition, they were very understanding and they were really keen to look for a solution. They really wanted to get us to race. So first port of call, and in fact probably the only solution, was to look for a substitute. They stated that the substitute had to row for our club, and at least, seeing as our club was an alumni club, to have rowed at our school. Now we were reeling off names in our heads, just spamming anyone we could find, seeing who we could drag out the woodwork. People from all years above and below us at school. And we had one name that automatically fit the mold. So Harry had just done his first year at Princeton. He'd come off the back of a quite bad back injury, but he was signed up for our club. He'd been training with us for the duration of our Henley campaign. So straight on the blower to Harry. Harry was technically in a rehab period for his back. So first off, he wanted the green light from his coaches. They said fine as long as you get the all clear from the physio.
You have no idea how quickly I just cycled.
Really? Is that smart?
Yeah.
Good lad.
Right, what we doing? Right, what do you need? I need to just put my kit on and warm up. If we race.
We are racing.
Mate, you can't just decide for my coaches that I'm right.
Yeah, I can. Okay, good.
Because it's like 5, 6 a.m.
That's their own fault. Go get your kits on.
If I race and they say no, then yes. That's what I'm worried about.
Long story short, he got a green light from the doctor. So we were good to race again with Harry. Next, we needed a practice session on the water with our new lineup. Obviously racing was going on that day, so we had a select period at lunchtime where we could get out on the water. Are we off the start? It's 3 3/4. Yeah, really nice jaw strokes. So we did one loop and it actually felt pretty good. Didn't feel the same, and it obviously wasn't ideal on a race day, but we could have been in a much worse situation, so we cracked on. So originally our race was going to be around 11, but it'd been moved to the end of the day because of the logistics behind the whole substitute situation. After that short practice paddle, it was time to go back, just put the legs up. So, time to get back to the course, and we got back to the course. This is where it gets really interesting. It's sort of headed south from here. When we arrived back at the boat tent, I got a call from the chairman of our club. He called me up and he said, "Pat, has Harry rowed for Princeton this year?" To which I was like, "What? Yeah, of course. Harry's been at Princeton all year. He's rowed for..." And he said, "Okay, leave it with me. I'll ring you back in 5." Now that put me on edge because it was probably about 2 hours before, an hour and a half before our race.
We got 50 minutes.
Okay, so Jack,
50 minutes before we boat.
Let's just prepare as if we're going out there.
Yeah, and
just know what you need before a race.
5 minutes go by. Got another phone call. "Okay, Pat, Harry's ineligible to race. You're gonna have to find someone else." Okay. Well, what I'd suggest then is that it's not like we're drafting in a superstar. Thanks.
Tell us now, first and quick.
Then they're not gonna let Harry race.
Okay, so let's get Webber. Let's just get Webber.
Yeah, Webber won't race.
He will.
He won't.
He said you told us that you'd be up for it. He said you just want to risk it.
I just spoke to him on the phone.
Okay, can I call him the race?
You can call him if you want.
So what they said for phone?
Don't push it that hard though. Like obviously he obviously wants to race. Like, which is pretty crushing. We recognised the chances of finding a substitute last race of the day that matched the criteria was pretty slim. So we sort of just stood around for a while, pretty defeated, with little to no inspiration as to what to do next. But fortunately, Harry, our substitute, he came up with the idea. He said, "Right, look, let's go see the race committee." Do you think we should speak to them ourselves?
Yeah, I would.
Okay. Okay, yeah. I'd change the Princeton top round.
Yeah, Harry, change the...
We've only got 20 minutes, that's the thing.
They escorted us through to the office. we knocked on the door and the woman came to the door and we said, "Hi, we're Rex Boat Club." We said, "We've been declared ineligible to race. Can we speak to the race committee, please?" So she showed us through into this office, walked through, and Steve Redgrave was sat there, Sir Steve Redgrave. And I think he knew about the situation, so he said, "Okay boys, come in." So there's 3 of us in the room. And Harry sort of he explained the situation well. And what Harry did was suggesting an idea of letting Jack rest up overnight and then doing our race the next day on the Thursday, which would mean you'd have to do 2 races on the Thursday if you'd won your first race. Turns out that this is something that had only been done 3 times in the history of the regatta. So we explained this to Steve and he sort of appreciated the idea, but then he also explained to us, which we completely agreed with, whoever wins that race is then disadvantaged because they're having to race 2 races in one day. And this is obviously something the other crew probably wouldn't be in favour of. So he explained that if we go to Upper Thames, explain the situation and ask them, and they say yes to this, that could work. So Harry gave it his best shot. Right at the end, Steve asked, "Do we have anything else any other spiel we want to give to really put our case forward?" So George steps up and said that he'd read the rules, and he said that if we could convince the stewards, and the stewards declared that they wanted to go ahead with the 2 races on one day idea, we wouldn't need the approval of Upper Thames, our opposition. And Steve Redgrave was sort of sitting there with his legs crossed, and he just looked at George and he goes, "I know the rules, mate." And I just had my hat in front of my face and I was trying to hide the laughter. And George said, "Okay, I'll show myself out." The main thing for us was just to be able to race, and race well. I also explained that it was our club's first time at Henley. And one of the things they want to do is draw in more and more clubs. So this was going to be a great starting point for us, so we really did want the opportunity. And he sort of nodded, and then we thought, okay, that's all we can do for now. He said, "I'll be in contact in 30 minutes. So we left, we were just waiting in the boat tent to see what would happen. And then I got another call. Put my phone to my ear, it was Mike. He said, "Pat, it's all good, get ready to race." We were back on.
That's boys! That's boys!
Get yourself ready, get yourself ready.
Okay!
Do the business. George, your mum's got the launch passes, yeah?
Yeah.
I've got mine.
Don't worry about them. You got one?
Yeah.
Good stuff. So, first things, we needed a race plan. As a race plan, I said we shouldn't expect to be down off the start, but we should be open to it. As in, if we do go down, it shouldn't change what we're doing too much, so that you can continue with your own race plan. I just didn't want us to lose our heads after all this excitement. And Henley can definitely do that to people.
3/4 mile, we move.
Yeah.
Do a little move there.
And we just stay internal.
Yeah, stay completely internal. Keep the height internal.
Yeah.
In the Wythold, the Rex Boat Club against me. And what a great race we've got here to end our day's racing. Not quite at halfway yet, there's still plenty of rowing left in this one. The crew's pretty much side by side.
We were up off the start. So to round things off quite succinctly, we lost the race. But putting everything to one side for a second, I honestly loved this whole experience. I loved the story behind it. I loved the short, intense period of training we did. Got along very well with the crew we're doing with. I loved being able to document it. I loved the support and feedback we got off everyone. It was nice to not be so results orientated, which sounds pretty backwards in a racing sport. It just meant we focused on the process and enjoyed the process a lot more. A race is 6 minutes and it can go either way, and you may or may not enjoy that. But the few weeks of work we put into it, we did really enjoy. It was nice to be able to get the most out of ourselves and the time we had available. And as short as it may have been, I've got absolutely no problem with what we achieved in that time. But if there's one thing, especially as a stroke man in rowing, that I really don't enjoy, it's being rowed through. It was always going to be bittersweet, getting the actual opportunity to race, but then being knocked out at the end of it. But there was still something unsatisfactory about being rowed through. Watching the race back on YouTube still gives me a funny feeling. It doesn't sit well with me. And I thought this is quite a negative way of thinking about it, especially to finish on. But what I realized is that there was more the feeling of wanting more out of myself and out of the sport. I didn't want to finish on this note. So I'd like to squash that feeling. Me and George made the decision to carry on rowing together next year, but for a whole season. So one stab at trying to squeeze out our full potential from a whole year's work. And I'm going to document everything. The videos will continue. I'm going to keep them up over summer. Next video Sunday. And then the real shit starts again in September. See that?
You've never raced with me, have you, Pat? You are aware you're doing the hill restraints to race, right?
Right, straight to the wheel.
Yeah, get the shots, mate.
That's what you want on race day?
You're still here? It's over. Go home. Go.